we'll go around and introduce ourselves, and then we can dive into learning more about this program. So my name is Shelby Javernick. I'm the Student Recruitment Director for the College of Media, Communication, and Information. We call ourselves CMCI for short. That saves us a lot of time in our presentations. But that is the college which this program is housed within. So there's multiple departments, and this program is housed within the Department of Advertising, Public Relations, and Design. So I will pass it over to Bert to introduce himself.
Thank you, Shelby, and I am Burton St. John. Some of you I've had interactions with already, and looking forward to speaking with as you develop more interest in this online-only master's program. I am the faculty director. That's part of my full-time gig here working at CU Boulder. And I have over 15 years professional experience in public relations, and then have been in academia the last 16 years or so. Shelby, who should we kick it to next?
We can kick it to, let me see who I have listed. Next is Rich.
Okay.
Must not have heard me say Kelly. I'm just joking. Hi, everybody. I'm Rich Clafe. In addition to my upcoming role in this program, I'm the head of marketing for a division within Oracle Corporation globally, where we look after inbound, outbound marketing, all communication work and outreach engagement, business development, things like that. All in, I've probably got close to 30 years in high tech, doing things from operations, services, comms, and marketing, things of that nature. And I've been an adjunct at DU and CU at different times, University of Denver and this school since about 1999 or 2000 or so. So thrilled to see you all, meet you all, and chat a little bit about whatever questions you have. So thanks for being here.
We'll pass it to Kelly next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Latiga. I am a two-time alum from CU. I was part of the original journalism school at CU Boulder, and then got my master's in public administration from CU Denver. I have been in the PR and corporate communication field for about 30 years almost. And most recently spent the last 20 years of my career at Vail Resorts in the travel and tourism industry. Right now, I pivoted into digital marketing and have my own consulting business in digital marketing. So nice to see you all.
Next, we'll pass it over to Laura.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Kelch. I work at CU Boulder. I'm a program manager, and I help support a few of our online professional master's degrees, such as the MA in corporate communication. And I work with prospective students. So if you have any questions about the program, things like that, I'm able to help. I also help with admissions and provide student support services from the time you get admitted to graduation. And that's me. Good to see everyone.
Thanks, Laura. And last but not least is Alex.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Parsons. I'm the program coordinator for the MAC. Super excited to see you all. I won't repeat everything, but basically I work directly with Laura and do everything that she mentioned. So all of your questions, I try to answer. You've probably gotten an email from me if you've requested information. So happy to answer any questions you might have, and looking forward to getting to know you all.
Great. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. Roxanne, I see that you got your master's in journalism from right at the time of CMCI. That's awesome. It's so great to see forever buffs in the chat and in the group. So I wanted to start by just kind of going over the purpose of the webinar today. So one of the goals and one of the reasons we promoted you to panelists is we'd love to build connections with you and would love for you to meet each other and our amazing faculty in this program. The next and probably one of the most important is overview of the program, kind of understanding the curriculum, the purpose of the program, why it was created at this time in this junction in media and communication. And then kind of then we'll go into next steps. How do you apply, when you can expect a decision, kind of the logistics of it all. And then of course, we'll have time for questions and answers. And then we have some Q&A queued up for our faculty as well. So we can talk to them about that as well. But with that note, I will pass it over to Bert, who's going to start with the overview of the program.
Thanks, Shelby. Yes, there are a few high points that I would like to share with everybody. And part of this as a high point, before I put up some visuals that we can look at, I do want to share with you that it makes perfectly good sense that you're here, really, in not just a more micro sense, but in the larger picture. The Chronicle Higher Education, just coincidentally within the last couple of weeks, released some information about how master's degrees programs are surging across the country here in the United States. And obviously, there are many people such as yourself that are going, hey, there must be some value in pursuing some of this additional work. I wanted to give you just a couple of little factoids, not a lot. We don't want to have a lot of statistics. In the last 10 years in the United States, we have seen colleges and universities add more than 9,000 master's degrees programs, 9,000 of them. And we've also found across their data bank that they looked at that across the 10 years, they've been asking institutions, what are you planning to do? And 60% of those institutions said that they have seen growth, and this has inspired them to continue to do this in master's programs. 60% of all the 9,000, well, actually, it's more like 2,000 in this case. It's a smaller data set. PR, advertising, and applied comm, they're kind of lumped together. Now we're focusing more, of course, in strategic comm, and that's more, or corporate comm is the name of our program, and that's more related to public relations. And that area is in the top 10 of growth of all master's programs in the United States, somewhere around an 88% increase. So why am I sharing this? Well, it's basically just to say, if you're here, you are part of a group of people across the country that are going, yes, master's programs make really good sense. Now, we're going to share with you how this particular master's program can likely make sense for you. And let me back up. I don't have my slide in the right order. Here we go. It is a fully online professional master's program. All right. And you're going to see some evidence about why this program makes sense. So this is a program that does not require any students to sit in a live classroom. So has ultimate flexibility for students in this program. So let's talk about some of the scenarios, set it up. Corporate comm is the use of communication to build and maintain these great relationships that all organizations want to have between what they do, who they are, what they're about, and key stakeholders, okay? So yes, we call this a corporate communication program, but for my money, the larger umbrella term is public relations. So we're doing this because we see this makes great sense. We've got the infrastructure. We have great people in continuing ed who are here with us today who help make the infrastructure work. And we have really well-seasoned instructors. They have to have at least 10 years of experience in this public relations, corporate comm arena. And the two individuals you'll hear from later today, Richard and Kelly, definitely have much more than that. So you're going to hear some more about their observations about how this program could work. So this really works for anybody who wants to understand more about how they can make public relations work for them, whether they're in a for-profit or nonprofit or governmental arena. All right, so don't let the term make you come away from this thinking, oh, it has to be just in a corporate office. No, No, we're giving you fundamentals that you can use in many different ways in your career. Who are the kind of students that would be a great fit for this program? Well, you see them right there. Obviously, in many master's programs, and ours is no different, people that are early in their career to mid, they want to get a more advanced knowledge and application, and you will get that in this program from very seasoned instructors. Now, we are also open to people that are in other disciplines, for example, journalism or advertising or marketing, who may want to think about switching careers. And I want to go a little further, that's on the slide. We're very committed to looking at people on an individual case. So if you, for example, were a student, a prospective student who had an accounting and finance background, that doesn't technically fit Allied, but we would still give you due consideration because of what you may intend to do with a master's degree. Perhaps you want to go in investor relations and the public relations arena, or you want to do some fundraising and development, and that connects with what you want to do with public relations. So we're willing to take a look at that. But the big thing is, and we're very serious about this, a student has to have 3 years of some type of professional workplace experience. And so we want to look very carefully at that when students apply. And we're expecting that students applying this program will be working full-time. There you see things about what's going on with the faculty that we will have teaching in this program, but rather than me go through talking about some of the various points you see here, you're going to pick that up from what Kelly and Richard are going to share about what they would bring to the classroom. So a couple of things about why we're doing this. By the way, if you're interested in advancing in the career or moving into the career, look at the number of master's degrees in just the smaller area of PR and corporate comm. It just keeps going up. And projected employment in that area by 2026, I think this is a conservative figure, little less than 300,000. But I do believe that number is a bit low. I've seen the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they're kind of a little narrow in the way that they define what people do in public relations. But you can take it from the data that there's a constant growth area there. For the grads coming out of this program, what does that kind of look like for job opportunities? You can see it right there. They're pretty substantive. Nationwide, you're looking at about by 2028, I think this figure is a better figure, a little bit more realistic. It's getting close to 400,000 or so. And in Colorado itself, you can see the numbers right there, that there's a strong substantive growth in that. And those figures also might be conservative for what's going on in Colorado. That's just in our state alone. Program, you can see right there, we have 5 core courses. And Richard and Kelly are teaching 2 of those in the fall. Richard is doing Strat Corporate Communication Management, and we have Kelly involved in Corporate Common Ethics. We are required to have, for students, 30 credits to graduate. They're called electives here, but I would say they're more like specialty courses. They're really not like we have a whole bank of many more electives that you would be looking at. We've deliberately picked core courses and what we call elective or specialty courses that will help you be well positioned when you graduate. And we want to obviously say thank you, each and every one of you, for being here today. We will throw this back over to Shelby.
Great, thank you, Bert. That was a good overview of the program. Hopefully that helped some of you, depending on how much knowledge you have from the website and from working with Alex and Laura. So next we'll transition into some Q&A with the faculty in the room to give you a better sense of this program more on a conversational level. And then if you all have any questions, please put them in the chat. We have some drafted that we think you might be interested in, but it's much more useful for you all if you have questions to put them in the chat or send them to Alex. I'm going to start with the two faculty leading the classes this fall, Rich and Kelly. So Bert alluded to your decades of experience. I was wondering if you could spend a moment telling us about your background and then also about your involvement in this program. Kelly, would you like to start? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I, as I mentioned earlier, have been in public relations and corporate communication for about 3 decades now. Most recently, I spent the last 20 years at Vail Resorts, which is one of the leading ski hospitality companies in the US and in North America. And there I spent most of my career as head of corporate communication and overseeing all of the various internal and external communications activities for the company. And Rich and I will talk about how we define corporate communication and all of the various functions that fall within that. And as I mentioned before, I'm a 2-time CU alum, and I'm very excited to be teaching corporate communication and ethics. I think that if this program had been around when I was mid-level in my career, I think it would have given me the tools and skill sets to really have a seat at the table with the leadership in the company much earlier on. I had to learn along the way. And I think, we'll get into this a little bit more in a little bit, but I think, today it's more important than ever to be in a situation where you can proactively influence the perception of your organization or company among all of your stakeholder groups, internally and externally. And as we see on a daily basis, misinformation and miscommunication everywhere, it's never been more important. So I'm really excited to be a part of this program. And Rich, I'll kick it over to you.
Thanks, Kelly. I couldn't agree more with what you just said about the importance. I'll give you all the really brief version of my background. Is started life in the public sector, actually working in state government, both the executive and the legislative branches. Long story short, moved into sales. So was in sales and sales management for a while, operations, very technical roles, customer support, customer success, and eventually marketing communication. But one of the things that drew me to marketing and communication was the universality of the skills that are involved in that. I don't care what somebody does for a living, being able to recognize opportunities for effective communication, to turn negative or crisis situations around, to get ahead of things before they, just you sort of, as they say these days, manage the narrative or control the narrative, really crucial. So that type of skill set, both in a professionalized way and in a more general way, I think is what drew me personally into these spaces. And I've been in communication and marketing for a long time as well, probably 25 plus years or 20, somewhere in that neighborhood. I think to Kelly's point, coming up and seeing sort of changes in the world today, I think the rapidity with which we're hit with information and with which organizational or brand reputation can change, the variety of stakeholders that exist today for anything, right? That's virality didn't exist a few years ago. They haven't invented it yet. So all these types of things for a brand, no matter what sector you're in, I think are really vital. So having a really firm handle on the skills and competencies and being able to think like a business communicator or a professional communicator, vital, no matter what industry. In terms of my involvement with C, I've neglected to mention, a 2-time graduate. I have a master's in integrated marketing communication from the pre-CMCI and a PhD in mass communication from the pre-CMCI. So I'm a super proud alum. I have 2 kids in the school, and I'm involved in a few other boards and things here as well. So listening to Kelly and I think you could say, the once a buff, forever a buff. And I think that's a really big draw. The university environment itself is a really unique differentiator for this program versus others. So I'll cap it there. Shelby, back to you.
Great, thank you, Rich. You are what we call a lifer. I think Roxanne's working on that too, since she's already back for more. That's great. Thank you both for that overview of your professional experience you're bringing to the table. I was wondering if we could now get into the program itself. And maybe it would be helpful if we just start, and Kelly, you alluded to this happening. If we could start with just defining what is corporate communications.
Yeah, I really see it, and Rich, you know, feel free to disagree with me, but it's the sum of a company's internal and external communications activities, and it's designed to really influence the perception among stakeholders of the company or organization, and obviously trying to gain a very favorable perception of your brand, organization, company, which, as Rich mentioned, you know, is very difficult in a rapidly changing digital world today. And I think, you know, all of us have seen how a company's reputation can just change on a dime. And I remember the day when social media really came to the forefront and Twitter became a big thing. And a tweet that just completely changed my entire day and spun it out of control in terms of crisis communications. So I think corporate communications can involve media relations, consumer public relations, investor relations, government relations, community relations, employee relations, and it's managing all of these and being as transparent as possible and cohesive as possible with the same consistent message internally and externally. It's, you know, it is like being a conductor of an orchestra and making sure everything is in harmony. It's not an easy job, but I have to say, having done it for as long as I have, it's definitely one of the most rewarding. Rich, would you agree, disagree?
I agree completely. I think it is that sort of basket of functions that become the you know, I don't want to repeat everything excellent Kelly said. So, you know, I'll add to that it's sort of the summation, the chief storytelling functions for an organization, whether you're looking at that in terms of a corporate brand and narrative, whether you're looking at how you tell stories financially, how you tell stories using data, and how you engage and hear and incorporate the stories of the people that have stakes in your organization and your, you know, the things that you do as an organization are really critical. So 100% rather agree with Kelly. And I would add that it's really about finding the right methodologies for the right situations, the right people, the right timing to tell the best possible stories we can, and to enrich our own experiences, you know, by listening to the stories of others who have a stake in our organizations.
Absolutely.
Great. The next question, I think I will start with Bert and see what your take is on this. You started to talk about it a little bit during your presentation, but why is this program distinct and important in this time? Why right now? What needs is this program addressing?
Well, to play on and build on some of the things that Kelly and Richard shared, right now it is probably as crucial as ever. I've been involved in public relations in some way for over 30 years. And at this stage, what's going on, not just in the United States, but around the world, I'm sure many of you are looking and following what's going on with narratives. So many narratives are just full of dissembling and half-truths, and a lot of problems that are coming from that really can be addressed, I would maintain, very well for the good of organizations and for society by individuals that have developed some more enhanced skills like they would through this program. And one thing I would add which is something I see as important at the undergraduate level. So if it's at the undergraduate level important, you know it's going to be essential in what goes on in our graduate program. And this is building on Richard and Kelly again, is learning some systematic and social science ways to build empathy. I think when you lack empathy, which I think is one of the stronger secrets about PR, when you build empathy in your public relations career and training, you're actually able to do a lot better by your client or clients and the stakeholders that follow those clients and society in general. And so I would add in that we have the kind of people that have the experience. This is, I think, what makes us vastly different for this program, is they inherently have walked that walk and talked that talk of how important empathy is in doing the right things by society, by organizations, and by stakeholders. So I think that's a very distinctive strength for our program.
Kelly and Rich, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I could say a few things, Kelly. We could have another chat about this as well. So I think, part of it also comes down, what makes the program, in addition to the things Bert's talking about, which I agree with wholly, the CU environment in and of itself is it's a vaunted institution going on 150 years of educating people, an incredibly global mindset. We actually host the Conference on World Affairs, Conference for World Affairs every year on the campus. That sort of internationality and that global perspective finds its way into the sort of pedagogical, the way in which we teach, and set up curricula and the way in which we teach and think about our place, both in terms of pure scholarship and in terms of the applied types of skills that go there. So I think that the strengths of CU behind it is critical. I think if you look at, I will hazard to speak on Bert's and Kelly's behalf, and they can certainly disabuse me of this if I'm wrong. But one of the things too is the way we're approaching this as a faculty team at these stages in our careers. One of the most gratifying things is to be able to help people achieve the goals that they have and get after the success that they have. So there's not only empathy that inheres in the way in which we teach and the way in which we look at things, but empathy inheres in how we approach that practice and that craft in and of itself. We have heavily vested in seeing people at different stages in their career hit the goals that they want and enabling them to get there, whether it's through practical advice, through curriculum and delivery, through example, through conversation, whatever it might be. So those are a couple of other things I'd add. Bert, Kelly, what do you think?
No, I agree with you 100%. And I, having hired a lot of CU grads over the years in my role, I really find it very rewarding to be able to share whatever I've learned and, skill sets, experience, et cetera, knowledge, and really help everyone else get a leg up in terms of corporate communication. And my goal in my career was I felt that I had a voice and opinion, and I was passionate and about the organization I worked for, and felt that I could contribute at a much higher level with our executive team. And it took me a long time to be able to get there. And if I can help someone else get there sooner with the right skill sets and practical experience, I think with this curriculum, giving the students experience that they can then apply to their current situation, I think is absolutely essential. So I'm very excited to be a part of this.
I think that's it. I just want to build on that point. I absolutely love when students communicate with me in some way and say, the thing we talked about last week, or the thing I learned last week, I went to work and used that today. and it
Right.
worked. It was awesome. That's the kind of thing we're also going for. To Kelly's point, it's a really crucial point. It's stuff you can apply, and
Right.
love to see that happen.
And get you ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. The next question I have is, could Kelly and Rich, could you go a little more in depth into the specific classes you are teaching in the fall and what your teaching approach might be? I
Well,
feel like
Rich,
you both might be sticklers.
No, you start first. Your course actually comes first.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yes. So the course I'm teaching in the fall is, the strategic corporate communication management, is designed as a level set on a lot of core skills and a lot of core information. In large part, it's a survey across a number of different areas that corporate communicators have to look at. Things like research, things like critical thinking, stakeholder analysis, narrative development, timelining, goal setting, things like key performance indicators, how we look at measurement, things of that nature. So it's a broad course. The assignments are designed to be both cumulative and applied, so that you walk out of the course with a plan for some of the things that you want to drill down into as you go through the program, things you want to apply in the world. It gives you basically a taste of a lot of different areas, and tries to bring in numerous sources from not necessarily scholarly literature, but accessible, sort of what are practitioners in the world talking, writing, and thinking about in a largely non-academic context. So that's a bit about the class. I don't want to go too far into it, but if there are further questions later about it, we can chat there. So Kelly, over to you.
Well, and I think one of the important points to make is that we really are being thoughtful about the continuity from one course to another, that they build on one another. And Rich and I have worked together to make sure that there is some overlap in transitioning to the next subject, and being able to apply what you've learned in the previous course to the next course. So in corporate communications and ethics, I think what's really important is understanding the legal and moral dimensions of decision making as it pertains to the communications function in an organization, and what you're bound by from a legal framework, but also making values-based decisions that reflect the organization's mission and values. And what I'm excited about with this course is that I really hope to take students through an entire process of a real world problem or example, from where you currently work, or something that you can pull from what's happening in society today, framing the problem, understanding then how to do a stakeholder analysis, who are you talking to, what is the end goal, and how are you going to communicate to these various audiences and make decisions based on those audiences. And I'm hoping that by the end of it, everyone can take away a substantive project, capstone project that they can apply to where they work today.
Yeah, I wanted to add in on top of what Kelly and Richard said, that whatever we would have in the way of more of the academic scholarly aspect is, as Richard mentioned, and Kelly also got into this too, is it will always be something that has an application.
Mhm.
We want to make sure, as both of our esteemed instructors here have mentioned, we want to make sure that you have something that you can really say, I can apply this can work somewhere in my career that I am advancing in. And we would like to also, and I work with every instructor brought on board, definitely I have a rapport with each one about how we are trying to make it so that every class that you take in this program, you potentially have something that you can put in a portfolio by the time that you are finished with this program. So we see having deliverables like that as being very important for students.
Right. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you all for that. So kind of going off of where Bert was leading us, these deliverables and end goal, can you tell us the types of jobs someone can expect with this degree? What types of jobs does it set you up for?
I think I think the managing the overall corporate communication function. So whether it's a director of corporate communication or VP, I think hopefully with everything that you learn in this program, you would be able to manage and oversee all of the various communications aspects, activities that are part of corporate communication. I mean, that being said, you could pick and choose certain aspects of corporate communication, whether it's government relations, crisis communications. I mean, it depends. There's some companies have very specific roles. Where I worked, investor relations was a completely separate function. But we worked very, very closely together because, again, it came back to making sure that we had a very consistent, similar message internally and externally. So I think sky's the limit in terms of whether you want to specialize in an aspect of corporate communication within that family of activities, or you want to oversee the whole thing. Rich, Rich, you also have like global marketing communications. I mean, there's other pieces of this as well.
I would agree. And so I do think that the sky's the limit. It's a good thing because it really depends on your goals coming in. If you want to manage and lead corporate communications functions, whatever that look like, PR, AR, internal, external, kind of like Kelly was saying, that's one way to go. There's also value in looking at these things and saying, I'm going to apply the skills and the principles of this to whatever it is I want to do, right? And it helps round out a general management perspective on a lot of things as well, right? Functional areas that provide more of a general management perspective, as well as the skills to go do this stuff. So I really think it comes down to what your goals are, and that's possibly what we can help guide on as well, depending on what you get interested in. Some people may come in with really clear goals. I want to lead this function within this space. Others may say, I know this is important, but I don't quite know what I don't know yet. And so what lights my fire after being here a little bit and getting that broader view? So sky's the limit's a great quote, Kelly.
I would agree. And there are these hybrid kind of positions with public relations that I think this advanced training and applications could be useful for students that are going, well, I wasn't really thinking of working in a corporate environment. That's fine. I mean, our program can do very well to set you up for, say, for example, you want to work at a nonprofit and perhaps want to, and many nonprofits, the public relations person also get involved in fundraising, say, for example. And there are also individuals that may see from this transferable skill sets that they've already had and would get more in this program that would allow them, say, for example, to land very well at a hybrid kind of firm, for example, and add PR and design firm if they choose to go to that kind of location, or a think tank. There are people that develop very good public relations, narrative skills, and anticipatory skills, and they could wind up working at a think tank, which a lot of those are in DC, but there's some in other areas of the country. And I didn't want to forget, I was wondering if either Richard or Kelly have heard of this, but there actually are positions, I've been reading about these, that seem like they were public relations, but they get titled like a storyteller. They actually do have that, like advanced storyteller or advanced dream weaver or something, some really strange title in these very forward-leaning organizations. But you can tell that it's a lot of being able to conceptualize, identify what's going on that really is relevant to that organization, and then be able to make it pertinent and resonate with people inside and outside the organization. And I think that's what we're really going to have a great ability to bring students in this program.
Yeah, I've also been teaching it in a different program with some similar, focus areas. People come in from an entrepreneurial standpoint too, and they say, I have a wonderful idea. How do I go to market with this? How do I work for myself? How do I build my own brand, my business? How am I sensitive to, who's, again, stakeholders, you hear that word a lot. And we, as Kelly said, we'll reinforce that between different courses, some of the core principles. But there's really, if somebody doesn't want to work within some kind of big organizational structure or corporate structure, there are a lot of other ways to take this stuff and leverage it.
Yeah.
Style yourself chief storytelling officer, to Bert's point, right? There's just so much that one can do. Just get your feet wet and figure it out if you don't already have a clear goal in mind.
Definitely. I think it applies to any, whether it's nonprofit, government, publicly traded organizations, private companies. I think it's, same consistent principles.
Awesome. Thank you all for those perspectives. The chief storyteller role, I feel like the business that's hiring that, they probably have kombucha on tap and you get to take naps in the afternoon. I think that sounds like a great role. Okay, so I want to be aware of time. So if anyone has any, Veronica, if anyone has any last minute questions, you can pop them into the chat for the faculty. Otherwise, I do want to give Alex enough time to talk about next steps, deadlines, and fee waivers. So I will pass it over to Alex to talk about next steps, but if you still have some lingering questions, go ahead and put them in the chat.
Thanks so much, Shelby. Wonderful. So yes, so you're interested in applying. Yay, excited. Next steps. Let me go ahead and put the link for our admissions page in the chat really fast. That way you can kind of, start your application right now if you want. But so there's that. And let me share my screen with you so we can kind of walk through this together. Our deadline for the fall, it's going to be July 15th. So application deadline coming up in about 2 months. If you go ahead and navigate to that webpage that I put in the chat, it'll bring you here, which will give you a breakdown of what we're looking for in your application. And so this is a good place to start. Of course, if you have questions about any of these details, you're welcome to reach out to me or Laura, and that information should be here as well. And we're happy to help you navigate that or set up a time to chat one-on-one. And then as far as all of you lovely people who are able to join us today live for this conversation, we are offering an application fee waiver. And so more information on that will be coming to you. We'll go ahead and send you an email with details on how to access that fee waiver in the next day or so. So go ahead and just keep an eye on your inboxes for that if you're in attendance today. And and we'd love to go ahead and see your application soon.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Bird, do you have something to add?
Yes, I think I noted I wanted to address this in real time. Roxanne put in a very important point. Those of you that did not see it in chat, let me just summarize it very quickly. It's about public relations, reputation, that at times clients would pressure PR people to do things that are either, I'm quoting her, false or unethical. Obviously, all fields have this problem. There are people that do shortcuts. There are clients that do shortcuts. There are bosses that do shortcuts. There are peers and subordinates. So I do not want to say anything that sounds like PR is exempt from this kind of concern. What I do want to say is that our program will, across all the 10 courses, will be very much focused on the overarching thing is, how do you do something that's constructive with some best practices, some good theory, some good social science, some benchmarking that's, you can see what's been done out there, that how do you do something that's constructive for your client, for stakeholders, and for society. And of course, when you're doing that, you're doing it for yourself also.
Mhm.
So it's what we call the win-win-win kind of situation. They're not always easy to get to. And I do agree with that, the nature of her question. They do take some careful analysis and thinking and observing and coming up proactively with how you could present things to managers rather than waiting. Because this is, I think, is when we get into some of these problems of feeling pressured. I mean, Richard and Kelly, what do you all want to add?
Yeah, I would love to. I saw that, Roxanne. Thank you so much. That's such a great question. And I was very fortunate that I worked for a company for so long that shared the same values that I did. And I was never asked to do anything unethical, but I think that's not necessarily the case everywhere today. I do think that because of the microscope that we all live under in the digital world, it's very difficult to get away with. There's whistleblowers and there's just employees. One of the things that we will address in my course is social media. And I think we, several of us in PR and corporate communication wanted to find a way to, can't we, basically put some guidelines around what they say and can't say. You can't, and for the most part, and I think that you can encourage, employees, basically what to advocate for. Just you can encourage them to be ambassadors, I should say. But I think, to your point, that would make actually a great capstone project in corporate communications and ethics, based on, if you were asked to do something that is unethical or go along with something that you feel isn't right, how do you handle that?
I couldn't add anything more to that. I think that the microscope is a big thing. You live your, there's a lot of, people's falsehood meters are pretty well developed in this space, maybe not in other areas of civil society, but certainly in this space, people's meters are pretty dialed in. And Shelby, I saw a question come in from Elise. Do you mind if I address that? Okay, so it's a great question. What net, the differences between a master's in comm and master's in marketing. What I would say, at least what you're hearing in terms of PR versus corporate comms, I think they're two ways of referring to the same thing. In some places, the whole basket's called public relations. In other experiences, the whole basket is called corporate communications, and the PR piece of that is one function. So the short answer to answer directly what you asked, I do think this program is directly applicable to senior level marketing management programs. I think there's a lot of skill sets, and Kelly and Bert jump in on this too. There's a lot of cross pollination of those skill sets, cross applicability of some of the things you want to learn or you will learn. If you look at, what's the difference between going here versus a master's in marketing, I think you go a lot deeper on things like search engine optimization and kind of the analytics of marketing space, some of the true marketing data pieces in more depth, and probably more about, sort of the old 4Ps type of thing and what that means today, where from a corporate communication standpoint, I think the category is broader. It's a broader rubric than necessarily marketing in a lot of contexts. So, there's definitely value in both. And I think it comes down to what what it is you want to do or gain out of the experience. But the short answer, and I hope this, and please, pipe up if this doesn't answer your question. I think there is direct applicability in a marketing space. I teach in comms programs and run marketing teams, and I'm always cross-referencing things from there and back and so forth. So
absolutely. And I think, Rich, to your point, it's all about storytelling, whether you're doing that for specifically, for the brand to a particular consumer audience. It's definitely about, telling the story of your brand, and using different, maybe perhaps different channels.
I would also add in, I agree with everything Kelly and Richard have pointed out, that there are synergies between marketing and public relations. I saw that from the very beginning of my career some 30 years ago. One thing I would say that I think is a distinctive element about a master's program in corporate comm versus, because the question was, how might it be different also from a master's in marketing? I think one of the key differences for my money and my experience and my study and my teaching in public relations for over 30 years is, I'm going to be very reductionist here because we only have a short amount of time. Marketing is so much more focused on products and services. Public relations helps and assists and coordinates and synergizes that area. But for those of you that might want to be interested in, say, for example, moving into policy arenas and how do we articulate and discuss that, like government relations, say, for example, or crisis communications. There are elements always, I think, almost inevitably of a product or service sometimes in those arenas, but not all the time. It may be there in the background. And I think that's where public relations training at this level gives you a bigger window of being able to apply skill sets for your career.
I think modern marketing too is really in a commercial context I think Bert's a great point, right, about the product and service. They're really becoming much even more tied in with sales. So there's a real heavy revenue component on that. They're looking at channel analyses, where are people coming from, what's profitable, what's not, how do I convert, the old marketing funnel, sort of the leads, how do I convert a lead into a qualified lead, into an opportunity, into a prospect, into a sell. So it is a more largely more promotion-based focus on a lot of things, than the breadth of a general corporate communication or PR type of focus.
Great. You guys ended right on time. Way to go. So that's all we have for you today, but I hope this was helpful. It seems like based on the chat, it has been a little helpful. Most importantly, you've now all met us and our names and our faces, and we're here to support you through this journey. So as you're deciding what's your next step academically, please connect with us. It might not honestly, it might not end up being our program, but we want to help you think about that now. And then once you get into our program, help you think critically about what your next step is for your career. So thank you all for joining us. I wanted to also share our email in the chat. If you email this email, we can direct it to anyone you see today. So if it's for a specific person, you can just write that in the message. But again, thank you all for joining. We look forward to meeting you soon virtually. And then if you just keep an eye on your email inbox, Alex and Laura are going to work to get those fee waiver codes to you.